The UFC 302 betting show is here. As always, my guy Theo Lander joins me to talk about where the money is going to be won and maybe lost on this Saturday's card as well. Not just mere hours away at this stage, 24 hours away, maybe a little bit more than 24 hours, maybe 36 hours away, by depending on. It could be over by the time, even if you tune in here afterwards, it could be all over. But all depending on when you tune in is how long the card is away. It was about 48 hours, and we're recording here. Before we get into it, before I introduce Theo, I just want to remind everybody we're doing this for a bit of fun. We want to remind everybody to gamble responsibly. If the fun stops, just stop altogether. We're not betting experts. We'll have a look at the lines. We'll see where the value is at. Although, I'm not calling us betting experts, Theo, but we have a tendency to get the team parlay up over the last number of events. So it'll definitely be worth sticking around and seeing what the team parlay is this time around too. It's at a hefty plus 900 and something again, I believe. But nonetheless, like I said, what I was saying, gamble responsibly. Have a bit of fun with it. Don't go too crazy, and don't get too mad at us if we ask or we give you some betting advice and it doesn't follow through, because that is quite a trend here on the Severe MMA betting show as well. We're not always successful. Theo, how are you, my friend? Are you looking forward to the card? Are you keeping well? The Boston Bruins out of the Stanley Cup since the last time I was talking to you. The Canada's Edmonton Oilers locking it up here in the Western Conference finals against Dallas. Is the heart hurting over the hockey?
Yeah, I mean, we were doing great till you brought that up, Ian. I had almost got over the Bruins. I have flashbacks on them back now. We had a Vezina winning goalie on the bench for some reason. We had no help down the center. I mean, that's neither here nor there, though. You are right in saying that we are not experts. That's 1000% true. And everyone, please be responsible with this stuff. But some people would say it's even more important to be hot than it is to be an expert in this scenario. And we are hot as a pistol right now, heading into UFC 302 on Lafayette Street. Will Dustin Poirier finish the story? I cannot wait to dive into this with you, Ian.
What a story it would be if he does get it done. Not sure if you have the information at close hand, but maybe we could go back and just maybe have a look at what we did have for UFC 301.
I do not have that available right now, but I do know that, we basically had Pantoja and Aldo were the big ones that we had to hit home on. Our team parlay did hit. It was overall a successful night for us. I don't think our records were that great. I think we were just below 500, but an overall profitable night given, the stakes on those ones that we did want to hit on.
Funny you say you don't have it, because I actually got it up here really
Oh,
quickly
there
in
you
one of our
go.
message exchanges. You had Pantoja money line minus 180, a hit for Theo on the main event, a hit for Theo on the co-main event. Aldo money line plus 125. You had Petrino inside the distance, that didn't show up. You had Pereira to win and over 1.5 rounds. Don't think that came up too. We got the early knockout. And you had Carvalho to win and over the 1.5 rounds. That was a hit too. So 3 out of 5. Right? Yeah, not too bad. I had Pantoja Usyk goes the distance plus 125. Petrino by decision. He ended up losing. I had Pereira first round KO. He got the submission. God damn it. I had Jack Shore money line plus 130. Didn't happen. And I had Bonfim by KO TKO. I'm sorry I brought that up because I had a horrible night on my singular bets. But as you said, the team parlay plus 560 last time out. Drakkar Close, Ishmael Bonfim, Jose Aldo, and Alexander Pantoja nailed the team parlay at plus 560. We've got one up at plus 900 or 981, I think it was, on an earlier card. But nonetheless, we'll get into 302 and what bets we have for the card ahead. Main event, Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev, the perennial number one contender, pound for pound number one. It's going to be an interesting fight. A lot of people are getting caught in the fairy tale of Poirier winning. I, for one, am not. I think it's going to be a big, big hill to climb for Dustin Poirier if he is going to get the job done. Obviously, MMA, lots of things can happen to you, but the odds are stacked against the diamond here in this main event, really, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's not even so much, the circumstances around it as a lot of people are suggesting. It's really just a style matchup. It's just Dustin Poirier against dominant, heavy grapplers is not a good recipe for success for him. And I hate to even say this. I hate to even ruin everyone's night because, we've spent the whole build up to this fantasizing of, oh, what if he does pull it off? What if he does catch him with a hook? What if he does, jump the gilly on him and it actually works this time? But, if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, the reality here is a cold, hard truth. It's most likely a submission. I could see it going to a TKO on the ground if, Dustin fends off enough submissions that, Islam has to prioritize ground and pound more. But man, that is a tall, tall task for Dustin Poirier to have there. It's a very tough ask. And, nothing short of a miracle could pull that off for Dustin Poirier. But that being said, I would be elated to be wrong. I would love to be wrong here, Ian.
You, me, and a lot of the MMA community here, when we're looking at money lines here, Islam Makhachev minus 600, Dustin Poirier plus 450 straight up for the win. Not too much value on Islam Makhachev overall. You mentioned likely submission here. We got minus 105 for Islam by submission. We got plus 450 for Islam by decision or technical decision. Much higher odds on Dustin Poirier at plus 1400 for decision, plus 750 for KO, plus 2200 for submission. So if you do fancy that Dustin Poirier Gilly, you can get that at odds of 22-1. I've stopped on Islam Makhachev as my first bet by KO, TKO, or disqualification. I think you're right in what you're saying, that the submission is the likely outcome of this fight, Theo. I think we had a little chat. I think when it comes to Islam, I feel this is a fight where Dustin is going to come on strong in round one. I think he'll have to kind of tread carefully a little bit in round one. And I think after that, it'll be up to him whenever he chooses to kind of turn up the gears and get Dustin out of there. Will it be submission or will it be TKO? I've gone for the more valued plus 250 for Islam to win by KO. I mean, if you fancy the submission minus 105, there is some good value in that if you want to bet big. And more so, bigger odds, smaller bet for me, plus 250 by KO, TKO, or disqualification for me. I think the takedown in this fight is inevitable. I think, there is a small chance that Islam might try and test these skills against Dustin on the feet. The fact that, Dustin doesn't throw any kicks might open up Islam here to, open up a little bit more on the outside here. But you're playing with fire if you stay standing with Dustin Poirier for too long, Theo. And I'm curious what you think of that assessment and where's your money at for the main event, if you do have any money on it, in fact.
Good luck to anybody who's willing to stand and trade with Dustin Poirier over 5 rounds in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. With that being said, I just want to get ahead of this because I feel like there's a strong possibility of this that people aren't paying attention to. In his last few fights, Islam Makhachev dropped Charles Oliveira on the feet, which led to the submission and the finish. He went the distance with Volkanovski in a fight where he largely won because of his work on the feet that people don't give enough credit for. Enough effective striking to actually win on the judges' scorecards there. And then in the rematch, of course, Volkanovski, a weight class down, coming in on short notice for that one as well. He knocks him out on the feet with a high kick. Of course, Islam Makhachev has a massive advantage when this fight hits the ground. That's why the odds look the way they do. I would not be surprised if we came out of this fight on Saturday night, Ian, and said, good God, I knew Islam Makhachev was a monster on the ground. I knew he was pretty well rounded on the feet, but I did not know he had it within him to knock out Dustin Poirier on the feet. And I think that's a very, very live thing that could happen. That's 100% in play here, especially when you go against people who are anticipating the takedown is coming. It
Yeah.
opens up so much up top. So that's why my pick for this fight is not just Islam by submission, which again is the most likely outcome, in my opinion.
And
But
that's what the bookies think as well.
of course, I'm going with him inside the distance at minus 300. He could knock him out on the ground as well, obviously. But I just want that extra insurance that if he does pull that off and does knock out Dustin Poirier on the feet, that I get great credit for it.
Yep. 100%. Well, you won't get as good a credit as I did. I went straight for the knockout. I'm being brave. You're being safe. And that's probably the best scenario or the best method to try and make money on this fight. But I agree exactly what you said. I mean, pound for pound, number one, you want to be considered great. There's a certain guy called John Jones who used to go in there and wrestle the wrestlers and used to go out and knock out the knockout artists. And that's how you get labeled great. So I'm thinking, Islam might find an opportunity here to stake his claim for greatness on the feet, get the knockout. He could hurt him on the feet, maybe finish him at ground and pound. He may take him down and pound him out. I don't know. I'm very interested to see that. That has me very intrigued in how Islam Makhachev is going to handle this fight, and obviously intrigued to see if Dustin Poirier can get the job done again. Moving on to the co-main event. Any action here for you in the co-main event?
I
Sean
do.
Strickland, Paulo Costa. Sorry, I should have said.
I actually think, Ian, we might have the same exact pick in this one.
Nice.
And honestly, I'm glad we're recording this right now. It's 7:10 on the East Coast on Thursday. Earlier today, a photograph came out when they do the media day. They do the headshots, the full body pictures. Paulo Costa has something that could only be described as a severe staph infection on his foot. It looks horrible. I don't know if you've seen this photo yet, Ian. It just
Not
came out today. It's been making the rounds. If Paulo Costa is going to this fight, not only in a 5-rounder against Sean Strickland, who's been there, done that for so many main events in the UFC, but he's also going in there with a staph infection, which, if you're on antibiotics, especially to treat that, is going to destroy your gas tank. That is a recipe for disaster against a guy like Sean Strickland, who, all this talk of he's ready to go to war, he's ready to bleed. The guy is the most impressive point fighter at 185, maybe outside of Israel Adesanya, although when they matched up, we saw how that went. Regardless, the point is, I think Strickland's going to jab the nose off Paulo Costa here. I think he's going to keep distance. He's going to frustrate him, bull and matador style. So I'm going with Sean Strickland by decision, and it's a great price. It's plus 190. Now, with the staph infection, maybe Paulo welts earlier. Maybe he's more willing
yeah.
to take an exit out earlier. So that does give me a bit of pause there. But if I had to go with most likely option, considering all the knowledge that we have, I got to go Strickland by decision.
100%. I'm with you all the way on that. The staph infection does give me a little bit of worry because of that. Also, when I made this pick, I didn't realize that this was a 5-round fight, to tell you the truth. I think that adds in Strickland's favor too, but not a finisher. But it could be death by 1,000 cuts here for for Paulo Costa, really. And if things aren't going his way, he might look for a way out. Sean Strickland might give him a way out. If you do fancy that by KO, TKO plus 160, but I've gone with the decision plus 190. That's going to stay moving in. It could be moving in some areas already. I see it 175 in some places too. So yeah, maybe you want to jump on that by decision if you fancy Sean Strickland. If you fancy the knockout, by all means, that's a good price of plus money as well. But like we said, Sean Strickland not too much known for his knockout power. Moving on down in the card. Actually, we'll just give straight up money bets. If you want to go Sean Strickland straight up here, minus 275. Paulo Costa plus 225. Likely outcome for Costa and route to victory here is a knockout, I would say. I'm sure you would agree with that too, Theo. Plus 375 for Paulo Costa by knockout as well, if you fancy that. Kevin Holland versus Michael Oleksiejczuk next on the card. Any action on this? I stayed away from this fight. Tough one to call how it's going to go.
Yeah.
For Oleksiejczuk, I know he's a knockout artist. For Kevin Holland, you just don't know what you're going to get with Kevin Holland, really, to be honest. And, when you don't really know what you're going to get, you don't really know where you're going to put your money. So I choose to kind of take a step away. Do you have any action on this?
No, and for basically the same reasons that you laid out there, Kevin Holland, you do never know what you're going to get with that guy. He could show up looking like the most complete guy in his division, and one night, the next night, it looks like he doesn't even care about being there. So when you have a guy like that you don't know what you're going to get versus a relatively unproven commodity, at least at this point in his career, it's just something that I don't feel the need to place my money on, especially when the odds are as wide as they are for Kevin Holland. So yeah, definitely okay with staying away from this one.
100%. Straight up, if you're interested, Kevin Holland minus 275. Michael Oleksiejczuk plus 225 if you fancy the upset in that one. Moving up card, or fight that was moved last minute to the main card. Strange switch up late in the week here. Alex Morono versus Nico Price. Interesting fight between two veterans here. Nico Price coming in at plus 200 underdog, Alex Morono minus 250. Can't argue too much with those odds. What are you expecting to see in this fight, Theo?
You know, I got a little bit cute with my Makhachev and Poirier prediction when I brought up that Makhachev could take him out on the feet. Maybe that's just a bit too much on me. So for this one, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to run the football. We're going to set up our offense and maybe go open it up later out in the game. But Alex Morono is on an upward trajectory. Nico Price is on a downward trajectory. We just got to keep it as simple as that here, in my opinion. So I think Morono, he's also a replacement in this fight for Nico Price, although he did 2 weeks before the announcement, have a victory in the UFC as well. So it's not like he's coming off the couch here. I do like it when fighters sort of roll over from the ending of their last camp into one that's relatively short notice here because you're already in shape. You've already gone through the rhythms of camp. So if you're good enough to go, if you're fresh enough to go, I think you should take advantage of that, especially given how short the lifespan of some fighters are for their maximum earning potential here. So a win over Nico Price in this spot would be huge for Alex Morono. And also, when they fought the first time, I thought he did well in that fight. He knocked Price down as well. And Price's chin from there has only gotten a little bit worse. So, honestly, this is a run the football play. We're sticking with Alex Morono.
What was the result of that first fight? It was Morono decision, wasn't that right?
No, he actually lost that to Nico Price.
Nico Price, right.
Yeah.
So looking for the revenge here as well. And Morono coming off the couch, but doesn't really fight. Fights at a nice steady pace too. That's not going to burn too much gas. I've gone for this fight to simply go the distance. This time at plus 135. I kind of agree with your assessment. If I was going to pick one of the fighters, Alex Morono coming in here at plus 210 to plus 210 to win the decision. Nico Price plus 700, plus 375 for the knockout. Submissions very far up, plus 2,000 for for Nico Price to win by submission, plus 450 for Morono by submission. I have chosen not to pick a winner of this fight just for it to go to the decision. I think, Nico Price coming off a heavy knockout in his last fight, maybe tentative. Morono coming in here, obviously, after losing to Nico Price the last time, will be a little bit tentative, I feel. And that's why I've gone for this fight to go the distance. Whoever wins is up to them. Once it goes the distance, we cash the money. Plus 135 for me. Moving on down the card. After that, we have the opening bout on the main card, Randy Brown versus Alessio Zaleski. Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, some people may know him as well. Minus 170 for Randy Brown, plus 140 for Alessio Zaleski. What are you thinking about this one? And do you have any money on it, Theo?
I stayed away from this one as well. And because in my official prediction, I went for Zaleski, but I don't know how much I love that just because I think Rude Boy Randy Brown is such a problem for people on the feet. Like, he's a long guy who's deceptively powerful. It seems like when he touches people, they get surprised by how hard he hits them. He has fallen a little bit in his recent fights, but he's still a relatively young guy in the UFC. I think he could get a bounce back victory here. But he's just going against a tough guy here. So I really didn't know which way to go for it. So I did have to abstain from this one as well, Ian.
Stayed away from it for my single bets. We'll talk about this a little bit later for the team parlay, perhaps. Next on the agenda, Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida, minus 125 for Cesar Almeida, 5-0. Second fight inside the UFC after coming off the Dana White's Contender Series. Kopylov plus 100 here after coming off his loss from Fluffy Hernandez last time out. Any action on this for you?
Nothing on this one either, Ian.
Yep, neither do I. Don't really know what to expect from Roman Kopylov. Don't really know what to expect from a guy like Cesar Almeida. Like, in his late 30s, 5-0 in mixed martial arts. A little bit of a wild card coming in here. UFC giving him a big opportunity. If you fancy Kopylov, I mean, my guy Harry Powell hates Kopylov, hates his style. I don't think he's too bad. I think, I see a little bit of value in that plus 100 for Kopylov, but I'm not confident enough to put any money on that whatsoever. Moving on down to the heavyweights on the card. Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. The heavyweight Brazilian Almeida coming in at minus 275, obviously coming off the back of his first loss in the UFC, I believe. And plus 225 for Alexander Romanov. I have no action on this. I was tempted, Theo, but I feel this is a real kind of a setup fight for Jailton Almeida to get back into the win column. I think, if you're willing to put down some good money on Almeida to get the win, minus 275 is a pretty decent price, to be honest. I think stylistically he matches up well. I think he's going to be quicker and more athletic than Alexander Romanov. Of course, the big question is, will he get him down easy? But we've seen he's getting these guys down relatively easy. If you're not confident of the finish, you could just go up straight up minus 275 for the win there. Any action on this yourself?
I did take this one because I think Almeida's kind of in a strange spot here. He was perceived as a scorching hot heavyweight prospect who perhaps was a beneficiary of a shallow division. But he then disappointed when he got the big opportunity against Derek Lewis. Not a lot of action in that main event. People were very unhappy with him after that. And then, of course, he loses by finish to Curtis Blades as well. So he's sort of, although it's a one-fight skid, it does feel like he's lost a lot of momentum here. So, like you said there, it does feel like this is a setup for him to get back in the win column here. I think he'll be more urgent to go for the finish once he gets him to the ground, which I think he won't have much issue with at all. So I felt compelled to go Almeida by submission. It's only a plus 150, which I don't love for the odds, but I do feel like that is the most likely outcome here. And so I did feel like I had to go with that.
Yep, I don't argue with that kind of breakdown at all, or that pick for the bet. It's the likely outcome. Obviously, got a little bit of criticism. Couldn't finish. Derek Lewis obviously got finished against Curtis Blades. I think it's a step down in competition for Almeida. I think I would be a little bit surprised if he didn't go out and get the finish there. Grant Dawson versus Joe Solecki is next what we're going to stop on in the lightweight division. I have some action on this. Let's call out the odds first. Minus 500 for Grant Dawson. Big favorite here coming in against Solecki at plus 380 to get the win. Before I give my assessment on what I think may happen, have you any action on this, Theo? Did you leave it off? You do.
I do have action on this, and I think you're gonna like what I have to say here because I think Grant Dawson is slept on massively. I think this guy's grappling is truly up there with, the upper echelons of that division as well. He has stepped out of the top 15 after the KO to Bobby Green, which I understand the hesitation for wanting to put money on Grant Dawson here after that. Bobby Green's not really known as a one-punch KO artist, with all due respect to him. And so when you see that happen to Dawson, you start to think, maybe this guy doesn't have what I thought he had. But this is such a step down for him. With all due respect, this is a massive step down for him. And so when he has that smothering style on top, when he's going to be putting the pressure on from the opening bell, I was elated to see Dawson by submission as high as it is. It's plus 300. I think they may have sucked me in with this one, Ian. They may have trapped me here, but I'm happy to be trapped with Grant Dawson in this situation.
Well, my brother, if you're going to be trapped, I'm going to be trapped with you, because I went for the exact same bet, plus 300 here. When you look at, you're looking at the stats here from Grant Dawson, 50% of his wins have come by way of submission, has abundance of submissions inside the UFC so far. Solecki is a guy who is a submission artist as well. 0% of his wins in the UFC have come by knockout as well. So I think, for Joe Solecki, I don't see him winning this fight. I think getting to a decision is going to be a victory for him in some regards. Minus 110 for Grant Dawson to win the decision, plus 650 for Joe Solecki to win the decision. By knockout, both of these guys, Dawson plus 500, Joe Solecki plus 2200. Obviously, a big odds for a guy who's not knocked out anybody yet inside the UFC. But we got to stop by submission plus 300. I think this is potential to be an absolute steal, to be honest. Will there be a level of tentativeness with Grant Dawson? That's yet to be seen. But, you're either going to have that tentativeness or you're going to have that fire in your belly to go out and prove that you still belong in the top 15 in the lightweight rankings. I think that's the Grant Dawson that we were going to see. I'm very happy that we got that plus 300 by submission for him as well. And I'm glad we're on the same page. We'll both be shouting together for that one as well, Theo. Moving on down in the card, we've got Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. Anything on that, Theo? Anything tickling your fancy there?
I personally stayed away from that, but I know that the team parlay might have something else to say about that.
You know it, brother. We'll get into that in just a moment. Plus 130 for Philip Rowe, minus 160 Jake Matthews in that one. If anyone is interested in a straight up bet, close odds there. Mickey Gall returns to the UFC to take on Basil Hafez in the welterweight division. I have some action on this as well. I'm wondering, do you do? Maybe I'll give you the opportunity to share. You don't. You're shaking your head. How do you see this fight going?
Well, the reason why I stayed away from it is because I really don't know how it's going to go. But based on what you've been sort of telling me behind the scenes, is that I do believe that Hafez is the guy. He's sort of next up in that division, so it could play that way. But I want to be careful with how I say this because I have a lot of respect for Mickey Gall. I don't know if his time in the UFC is going to last that much longer. So
Well, he was out and then he's back in, and it's like, I
It's
don't
what
know, man.
it's what I mean. I mean, the way that the roster cuts at this point in the UFC are happening, it feels like they don't give them as long of a leash anymore. Now, Mickey Gall, and this is going to be purely speculative here. Remember when they did all those roster cuts when they cut like Yoel Romero and people were surprised and all these other like big name guys who weren't really on that big of skid? It's because they were making more money than they thought they were worth. I'd wager that Mickey Gall is making a little bit more than maybe some people who have similar attributes in the UFC to him are, because he's been around for a while, because he fought CM Punk, because he's a bit of a recognizable face to some guys. So if you have a guy like that who is making an excess of money, who's not getting the performances done, who's not going to help you build other stars in the future, that's usually when the UFC cuts ties with them. And I unfortunately feel like we might be coming to that decision for Mickey Gall here. So I just, out of respect, did not want to go against him in this.
So the way I look at this fight is, and I agree with exactly everything that you said. I think Mickey Gall is a name on this card, and sometimes you'll see the UFC trying to market or try to build fighters by giving them a name who's a winnable fight for them as well. Basil Hafez came into the UFC on his debut on short notice, I believe, as well, relatively short notice, and took on Jack Della Maddalena and brought him to a split decision. So I think that, dangerous to play around with MMA mats. But when you look at the rest of his record, I mean, he's got he's got a couple of triangle choke wins. He has a couple of knockout wins as well in his recent fights. So I have gone for him straight up to win by KO, TKO, or submission at plus 110. I think he might get Mickey Gall out of there. I think Mickey Gall gets hit, gets hurt. I think if Hafez, has the capabilities to kind of mix and match with Jack Della Maddalena and bring him to a split decision, he should be going in there. He should be getting the win. The UFC is kind of like, thank you for coming in at short notice to take on Jack Della Maddalena and keeping him on a card. Here's a little bit more of a winnable fight against a recognizable name. So Hafez inside the distance for me, plus 110. That's what I've went on. That kind of rounds me up for my singular bets, but not necessarily saying that the man across the way from me is finished yet. There is a couple of more fights left on the card here. Aileen Perez versus Jocelyn Edwards, minus 188 for Aileen Perez, plus 162 for Jocelyn Edwards. Any action on this one? This is a
It's not going to be on my card, but I am considering doing a little bit of a sprinkle on Aline Perez here by decision. I was surprised to see that the odds are as close as they are for this fight, just because I think Aline Perez, is excellent, not only with the grappling, but just her overall game. I thought has gone a lot better in the last couple of fights. So her by decision here is, let me get this because this is so off the cuff, Ian. I don't even have it pulled up
Don't
here.
worry, we're doing it on the off the cuff here. That's what we do here on
Perez
this show.
Perez by unanimous decision, which I do like, is plus 140, but Perez by decision is like an even minus 105, minus
Yeah,
110. It's a straight pick 'em, honestly, and I like those odds for her because I think that's a pretty likely outcome for that fight.
yeah, I can't argue with that. Look, in terms of quality, both these women, with all due respect, aren't great. I would have to say Don't think they're going to be making any great strides inside the UFC. But you look at all of their UFC wins. You got Aileen Perez, 100% of her wins by decision. You got Jocelyn Edwards, 100% of her wins by decision. If you fancy a big bet and you don't know who's going to win this, minus 260 for the fight to go the distance could be your route as well if you don't want to pick and match. But if you do feel confident, like Theo, in one of these women taking home the win, that's definitely going to be the bet for you, Aileen Perez. I kind of like that one, my too. It might be an unofficial bet for myself as well, shall we say. Last but not least, an absolute cracker in the flyweight division. Mitch Raposo, Andre Lima. Raposo coming in here at short notice, it has to be said, plus 200 underdog. Andre Lima, minus 250 coming in here. Any action on this? Anything tickle your fancy?
Yeah, so I think Lima is one of these guys who we're going to be talking about for a while here. I'm so looking forward to this fight. Flyweight almost always delivers anyways, but when you got two guys with these style matchups like this, you can't go wrong. I do think that Lima is going to get the job done, albeit because Mitch Raposo is coming in on short notice. I wish that this was a properly booked fight. I wish that Mitch Raposo wasn't coming in on short notice because I think it'd be a lot different. However, with that being said, I have to give the edge to Lima, and I would actually favor him by TKO/KO/DQ, which you can get right now at around plus 200, which for the kind of fight this is going to be, considering he's going to be the guy coming off the full camp, I think that's insane value to get.
Yeah, very good. I think I can see him setting a wicked pace here. If I'm in his corner, I'm telling him hit the body of Raposo as much as you can, test him out, try and bring him into deep waters. We'll have to be careful with a guy like Mitch Raposo. I think I agree with what you said. If Mitch was coming in here on a full camp, this would be a lot closer of a fight. I'd say it'd be a lot closer in the betting as well. But yeah, I like that Lima by KO TKO. You could throw him in there with a couple of other certainties, maybe, or potential certainties if you want to on the card. At minus 250 there, he's definitely parlay worthy if you don't fancy putting a big bet on him. But I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down there, Theo. And that brings us to the team parlay. It's team parlay time, baby. Let's go. We're on a roll with these. It's time to get another one up. Can we make it the hat trick? Can we get it 3 in a row for team parlays? Let's see what we've got mustered up this time around.
Yeah, so I want to hear about this Jake Matthews pick because we were going to talk about this earlier, but this is something that you actually fancy quite a bit, don't you?
I like Jake Matthews in this fight. Look, it's always, in my opinion, it's always dodgy going for Jake Matthews because you really don't know what to expect. But I'm not a big fan of Phil Rowe. I don't think he's UFC quality. I think if Jake Matthews comes in and is even a shadow of his best, I feel that he has the ability to get a guy like Phil Rowe out of there, at least win. Coming off a unanimous decision loss to Michael Morales is nothing to be snuffed at. Morales is one of the top prospects now in the welterweight division. Before that, you'll see his career losses to Sean Brady's, wins to Andre Fijalio, lost to Smellsberger. This is the kind of epitomizes Jake Matthews' kind of run in recent times. So I'm going with the win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win role that he's on right now. Look at that for thinking, eh? That's serious analytics there. But no, in all due reality, look at it. It's down to the level of opponent that he's been facing, and he's found out about himself that if he reaches a certain level, maybe the Smellsberger loss might be a little bit disappointing for him, but he's lost against good quality guys. I think he has better quality of Phil Rowe. Rowe obviously coming in here off of 2 losses in a row. He's lost 2 grappling fights. I got caught out with that in the preview show. But a split decision to Neil Magny in his last fight. Am I uber confident about this? No, but I'm going to take the minus 160 and Jake Matthews. You got to take a little chance in these parlays. You've doubted me before. I've proven you're right. I don't know whether you doubt me this time around, but I know that I am reaching for the stars a little bit. But you got it with the parlays. I think Jake Matthews has enough to get it done against Phil Rowe all the same. Would you agree? Would you disagree?
I think you laid it out perfectly there. And honestly, Ian, I'm a sucker for easy stats. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. You got me hook, line, and sinker with that one, so I'm all in, baby.
There you go. There you go. I guess I'll continue on with Randy Brown as my second pick for the team parlay at a minus 170. Coming in here, with a tricky fight in Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Zaleski dos Santos is game as fuck, but he's also a wild man in there. And I think the length and the reach advantage and the fact that Randy Brown fights so well on the outside is going to keep Alessio Zaleski dos Santos away from him. And I think it will be en route to either maybe a finish. Wasn't confident enough to pick a finish, but definitely enough to get Randy Brown. I think Randy Brown is another guy where, you know, we've seen flashes of brilliance in there, like against Muslim Salikov in his last fight. That sweet 1-2 that he finished Salikov with. That could be there this time around as well with a guy like Alessio Zaleski, who storms forward, wings punches. But Zaleski dos Santos is so tough. And you know, could be a potential banana peel here as well. But I do think that Randy Brown has been in there with quality competition, is experienced enough to get past the test of Zaleski dos Santos here. And that's why I picked him at minus 170 to kind of get the win here.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. And honestly, when you look at my second half of this parlay, my contribution, I'm a bit all over the place. I did put in the heaviest favorite of the legs here with Makhachev inside the distance. Again, could be TKO, could be KO, DQ, could be submission. We're gonna save ourselves here, buy us a little bit of insurance, go with minus 300 here. Listen, I don't see a way that Dustin Poirier wins this fight by decision. He would have to finish him. I also don't see him hanging in there for a decision with Makhachev either, so I don't think there'd be like a moral victory situation going on here. So Makhachev inside the distance, good one to fluff your parlay a little bit, but just playing it safe there. And now this one, although it says plus 200, I feel like this is the safer of the picks, honestly. Morono by decision is I can't believe they're giving us plus 200 on this one. Again, we're running the football here. We're trying to keep it simple. Morono's on an upward trajectory. Nico Price is on a downward trajectory. I think Morono has gotten a lot better since they faced off the first time in 2017. I don't know if I could say the same for Nico Price, and I don't know where Nico Price's chin is at. So I feel more than compelled to go Morono by decision here. Plus 932. Not a bad one. Not a bad one. Maybe we're feeling ourselves a bit too much. Maybe we're thinking we're better than we are. Maybe, last month's plus 500 parlay was appropriate. Maybe we're going to get humbled here with this plus 932. Who the hell knows, Ian? But I can't wait to find out with you.
As your beloved team Spurs would say, to dare is to do, and that's what we're doing with this team parlay. And that Morono bet definitely bulks it up. I like it. I'm confident. But you look at anything can happen in the big bad world of mixed martial arts. Let's bring up your bets to remind everybody, Theo, what you got going on before we bring up my one. Bring us through those bets real quick.
Yeah, again, I mean, Makhachev inside the distance. Let's not beat a dead horse. We all know what this fight is. Strickland by decision. That's really if Paulo hangs in there long enough with the staff. God bless him. Morono by decision. Again, we're running the football, upward trajectory, all that good stuff. Jalton Almeida is a guy that I think is coming out with something to prove here in a weird spot. I think people are forgetting how talented this guy is given the outcomes of his last two fights. So submission here was a no-brainer for me. And of course, Dawson submission, in my opinion, the best value pick on the entire card by plus 300, something that Ian O'Neill agreed with me as well on his card.
100%. On my card, Islam Makhachev, KO, TKO, or DQ, plus 250 if he stands and bangs with him and clips him and gets him out of there. Strickland by decision, plus 190. Price versus Morono. Not as confident as you in the Morono decision, but I still kind of like what you're saying. I didn't choose to take the chance on it. If I was to pick either one, I would definitely be going for Morono over Price. I've just gone for that fight to go the distance at a straight up 135. Dawson by submission plus 300. I agree with you. That's a fantastic price for a guy who's known to get a submission. Basile Hafez by knockout, TKO or DQ plus 160 to get the win over Mickey Gall. And I think, I thought I had all. I think that was by, KO, TKO, or DQ. I actually have it by submission as well, but that's okay. That's not a big issue. I believe I'm just going to check that real
You do.
quick.
You're right. I just double checked that. I misread that, Ian.
That's okay. Yeah, KO or submission or inside the distance, whatever you want to call it. Plus 160. Get on it. Get at it. And that's it for the betting show. Bish, bash, bosh. We've done it again. We'll be back for the big one, Conor McGregor versus Mike Chandler, next month. Actually, it will be next month, but technically it's inside the month of June as well. But that's it. Yeah, another one in the books. Theo, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Please, please, please do this responsibly. We're just having a bit of fun. Of course, I know people are going to be compelled to put their money on Dustin Poirier. Maybe donate to charity instead. Maybe give money to someone who needs it. Who knows? If you're going to throw money away, do it for a good cause. These sports books don't really need your money. They make plenty on their own. But yeah, have fun. If it's not fun, stop. If you need help, seek out help.
100%. Dustin Poirier there getting a few strays. Catching a few strays there from my guy, Theo. Enjoy the fights. Have fun with the bets. Like I said, don't take it too seriously. Don't go too mad. We will see you for the betting show for UFC 303. Take care.